good that you attend all the classes in a series, okay? And for Mariam, I would like to advise you to get a hands-on previous video lectures, because these video lectures are recorded. You can get it and try to watch it, okay? So that you better understand what we are doing. So the motive of these classes is not to cover any syllabus, because we don't have any syllabus per se. I decide and you people, we together decide what we are going to understand and learn in these classes. So basically we are not covering syllabus here, we are uncovering the syllabus here. And Anushka has joined just now. Hello Anushka.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So in the previous two classes about of this series on biomolecules, we started with three classes basically. As we started with carbohydrates, so the most important and the very first biomolecule that comes to our mind. Carbohydrates are called the energy, the quick energy, right? The utilizable energy in our body. And for this we took glucose as a representative and we studied about glucose. And then we went on to lipids. And for lipids, we studied more intensively because lipids are of different kinds. There are four different biological kinds of lipids based on their structure. So we studied in a little bit detail about all of them. We studied the interaction. We have not touched upon the evolution of any of the above. For today's class, I would like to start with protein, and the parts which I have left for both carbohydrate and lipids will together. So the evolutionary part will do together for all these biomolecules. And I think I have planned, because in that way it will make more sense and it will be easier for you to understand. Okay. So today we are going to begin with proteins. So even if it's someone's first class, we can start with the same page, right? Okay, so these classes are very discussive. Those who have attended my previous classes know. So I would like you to keep your microphones on and discuss, because I'm going to ask a lot of questions. So let's just begin with the very basic. So you have read this term protein. So we'll first discuss the general premise of protein, then we'll go to a video synopsis where we'll watch some things about protein, and then I'll come back to the higher concepts. So what are proteins? The first question. Let's begin with the most simple. What are proteins? What do you know about proteins? Okay, speak, shoot.
Sir, they're molecules or organic molecules.
Great. Well, the series is on biomolecules. Of course, they are going to be organic molecules. Something from here. They are organic molecules, correct?
Made up of amino acids.
Made up of amino acids. Nice. A new word. Amino acids. Okay. Anything else? Keep on adding. They are organic molecules made up of amino acids. What more? That's all. That's their significance. So proteins are biological molecules which are made up of amino acids. That's all. That's why they are important.
Sir, they're called the building blocks
of building blocks of
human body, animal body.
Building blocks of animal body. What about plant's body or bacteria's body or?
Sir, yes.
Protists?
Living organisms.
So they are called building blocks of living organisms. Okay. So I'll write building blocks. Okay. What else? That's all. 3 लाइन पढ़ा है आपने प्रोटीन्स के बारे में. I'm sure you must be knowing more. Mariam.
Yes.
What else do you know about proteins apart from these 3 lines?
Muscles are made up of proteins.
Muscles are made up of proteins. Nice. I think the most important utility purpose of proteins. Not biologically relevant, but yes, muscles are made up of proteins, which again comes in the same like bracket of building blocks of living system. Okay. And
So they're manufactured by ribosomes.
okay, so there's something called the protein factory or the protein synthesis machinery in a cell, right? Which are called ribosomes. So ribosomes makes proteins. Is it correct? Should I write this? Ribosomes make proteins.
In cells.
Of course, in a cell, right? Okay, in a cell, we लिख देता हूँ. So we are just testing, like I'm just testing your water. So kitna, what we already know. So we know that they are made up of amino acids. They are the building blocks of living systems, and they are synthesized by organelles called ribosomes. Bas? So in your entrances for MBBS and all other entrances for MSc and research-based entrances, proteins are very hot topics. Okay, give me some good examples of proteins in your body. At least 2 proteins in everyone's body. So
Science.
Anushka, yes, Anushka has started first because she knows ki last ke liye bachega nahi. Okay, Anushka, yes. Tell me, what are the 2 proteins in your body?
Like in a form of enzymes.
Name it. Name, like all enzymes are proteins, but which enzyme you are talking about? If not enzyme, you can name any other protein. Any protein which you know is very important in your body. Come on, you're the first one. Okay, Mariam. Anyone can be the first one. Yes, tell me.
Hemoglobin.
Hemoglobin. She has taken the most important one. अभी तुम लोग सोचो. 2 तो बोलना ही पड़ेगा. Hemoglobin. And what does it do? Since you have given the name, can you tell me what does hemoglobin do?
It's in the red blood cell. It transports oxygen.
It transports oxygen. Okay. So it's in the RBCs and it transports oxygen. Cool. Apart from hemoglobin? You have to tell 2, Mariam.
Insulin. I'm
Insulin.
not sure.
Perfect, right. Insulin is a protein. Very good. If you're not sure, I'm just telling you. And what does insulin do? Yes.
Regulates blood sugar level.
Regulates blood sugar levels. But this answer will not be counted in your 2 proteins. Okay. You just helped Mariam. Remember that. I appreciate that. So it regulates blood glucose level. And we have studied it. How does it regulate, Anushka? Were you in my previous classes where we discussed glucose? And in that glucose wala chapter, we have discussed insulin a lot because it regulates blood glucose level.
No, sir, I wasn't there.
Okay, so you should get your hands on that lecture and look at it, okay? Just follow it.
Yes, sir.
So it regulates blood sugar level. Yash, would you like to tell how
Yes.
does it regulate blood sugar level? What does insulin do?
Sir, it converts glucose into some other thing.
No, it does not do anything to the
It-
glucose. It doesn't even bind to glucose, let me tell you. It never touches glucose.
Sir, it informs the pituitary.
It doesn't go to the, it goes to the brain, but not to the pituitary. It does something to each and every cell. There is something
Sir,
present.
it tells them to
Yes.
stop.
But okay.
Sir, insulin, I think it moves the glucose to every part of the cell so that it works and
It
the
doesn't
glucose
touch
is breakdown.
glucose. It cannot move glucose. It doesn't touch glucose. ये धक्का देके कहीं पहुंचाता भी नहीं है. ये ग्लूकोज से बात ही नहीं करता है.
Sir, increases.
But still it
glucose
regulates
metabolism.
glucose level. Yes, what? Yes.
It could increase glucose metabolism.
Exactly, but how? That is what it does. It regulates glucose metabolism, but how is my answer? So Arpit has joined. Hello, Arpit. Yeah, so I'm asking how insulin regulates blood sugar level. We have started with proteins today, and everyone has to give me 2 examples of proteins. So these are 2 examples given by Mariam. These are Mariam's protein. So insulin regulates blood sugar level. How? Arpit was there in that class. Arpit, you should remember that. Do you remember how insulin regulates blood sugar level? You are not audible to me. Am I audible to everyone? Was Arpit audible to anyone?
No, sir.
Okay, maybe he's trying to speak, but Arpit, if you're trying to speak, you're not audible. So let me tell you, insulin, what it does is it goes to each and every cell of the body, and basically there are receptors on cell which are called insulin like receptors or insulin receptors. It binds to the receptors in the cell, and this binding tells the cell that there is glucose available in the surrounding. So whenever glucose level increases in the blood, insulin is released in the blood, and insulin goes and bind to the cells, and therefore cells know that they have to now absorb glucose from the bloodstream into the cell. So all the glucose from the blood, not all, but glucose from the blood gets into the cells for metabolism, and the metabolism of glucose is called glycolysis. This term you must have read, right? Again, in biology, I always talk about terminology. So you have to learn biology through their terms. Okay. So the word glyco means glucose and lysis means breakdown. Okay. So the breakdown of glucose is called glycolysis. Is it clear?
Yes.
So this is the process in which glucose is used, and to use glucose for this process, insulin has to be there because it signals the cell that glucose should be absorbed from the blood into the cell. So when it gets into the cell, it's not in the blood. So blood sugar level remains in a range. It remains regulated. Okay. These are Mariam's protein. Others, Anushka, Yash, Arpit. Tell me two proteins which are in your body. सिर्फ दो ही प्रोटीन के बारे में तो नहीं जानते होगे. Just think. You said they are. Yes, Arpit. What?
Sir, I said amylase.
Yes. Amylase. Okay. What does amylase do? Yes, amylase is a protein. What does it do?
Partial digestion of sugars.
Yes, it digests sugar. We call it partial because it doesn't break it till the last, because it goes into the stomach for further breakdown. But yes, amylase helps in digestion of sugar, and amylase is present in your saliva. That's why it's called salivary amylase. If it's from the saliva, it's called salivary amylase. Amylase is also present in your stomach. It's called peptic or gastric amylase. Okay. So amylase, yes, great. And yes, second protein.
Glucagon.
Sorry?
Glucagon.
Glucagon. Are you sure glucagon is a protein?
No, sir.
And what does glucagon do?
It induces sugar into the blood.
It induces. Introduces. What are you saying?
Introduces.
Introduces means वो blood से आके बोलता है, hi blood, this is sugar, hello sugar, this is.
No, sir.
What do you mean? So when you are using these terms in biology, you have to be. So I'm just trying to understand what all you know. Then I'll start with the concepts.
Sir, it increases the blood sugar level.
It again, it increases the blood glucose level just like insulin, but in regulation. So insulin is responsible for decreasing. Whenever the level increases, it decreases the level back by making the cells uptake the glucose from the blood. Okay. On the other hand, glucagon is antagonist to insulin. Okay. So it's a hormone that is involved in controlling blood sugar, and it's produced by pancreas, the same source from where insulin is present, but insulin is present from the beta cells, and insulin is secreted from the beta cells, and glucagon is secreted from the alpha cells. Okay. So again, you're right. I'll write it in regulation. So I'm just writing the function, regulation of blood sugar. Okay. Arpit and Anushka, two proteins.
Pepsin and thyroxine.
Perfect. So let's talk about pepsin. What is pepsin? Sounds cool, right? Like a Pepsi. Okay, what does pepsin do?
So helps in digestion.
What? Digestion of what? See, because helps in digestion is a very loose term, right? This,
Sir, it acts on protein.
yes,
Sorry.
this molecule is going to be very important because today I'm going to tell you something about proteins that you may or may not be knowing. So let Anushka. Yes, Anushka. Pepsin, someone said that it acts on proteins. Do you agree?
Yeah, and it breaks down the proteins into smaller peptides.
Okay, so you use the term peptides. So I'll write it here. And because you use the term, I'm going to ask you what are peptides and what are proteins? Breakdown of protein into peptides.
Sir, may
What are peptides?
Small chains of amino acids.
And what are proteins? What are proteins? We are studying proteins. Peptides, you're right, they are small chains of amino acid. What are proteins?
They are large complex molecules.
Okay, I'll take that answer for now. Fine. So pepsin breakdowns protein, which means it's an enzyme that acts on proteins, and enzymes that digest proteins are called uh, peptidases. And because it's inside the stomach, it's called endopeptidase. Remember the term peptidase. Peptidase means which degrades or breaks down protein into peptides. And the next second one you said was, what was the second protein?
sir,
Sir, I said
You said
thyroxine.
thyroxine. Thyroxine, is it a protein?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so what protein are you sure about? So thyroxine you're not sure about. Which protein are you sure about? That you know it's a protein. So hormones can have two lineages, okay? Because thyroxine is a hormone. Hormone can even be proteinaceous or steroidal in nature. About steroids, we studied in the last lecture. So, and we'll come back to it from evolutionary point of view. So just let's keep hormone out of the discussion for now because that will just complicate. So that's why I'm not including thyroxine. Though thyroxine comes from an amino derivative, it's a proteinaceous hormone. Okay, so your answer is right. But can you think of another protein in the body? There is protein like starting from your hair to your skin to every organ, and you are taking so much time to think about it. So there is, let me give you hints.
sir.
So there is a protein in our hair. Perfect. Actin. Someone said actin, right?
Sir,
Yes, right. Anushka. Actin. What is actin?
sir, a protein that helps in contraction of muscles.
Yes.
It leads us to move our muscles. Actin and myosin also.
Exactly. So it's called structural protein. Okay. Actin is called a structural protein. It provides the structure of the cell. It's also called cytoskeletal protein. Now, can you tell me the meaning of the word cytoskeletal or cytoskeleton? The word cyto means? The word cyto everywhere means cell. I have told you multiple times. Cyto anywhere means cell, and skeletal you all know. Skeleton means? Sorry, there's a mistake here. What is skeleton?
Supporting structure.
The framework of the body. So here it is the framework of the cell. So cytoskeletal protein means those proteins which make the skeleton of the cell. So हम जो books में पढ़ते हैं, like in the diagrams we make a cell, so we always make a boundary and we make all the organelles inside. This is not how cells look like. Okay, this is just to a very simplified version to for you to understand कि cell ऐसा होता है, यहाँ structures होते हैं. Have you ever thought that if cell is just a membrane and inside are the floating organelles, how it has a shape? Then no cell can never maintain a shape, but cells do maintain their shape, right? Squamous epithelial cells of our mouth cavity are actually rectangular or cuboidal in shape. How do they maintain their shape? Because there are a lot of skeletal structures starting from the membrane going deep inside the cell towards nucleus. There's a lot of these. Have you seen like in marriage houses or when these tents are laid down, there is a skeletal of bamboo made. देखा है कभी किसी टेंट वाले को टेंट बांधते हुए?
Yes, sir.
वो पहले सिर्फ बैम्बू के स्ट्रक्चर से एक पूरा मतलब पूरा एक स्केलेटन बनाता है बांध के, फिर उसके ऊपर और अच्छी चीजें लगा के उसको टेंट जैसा बनाया था. And when you enter inside that marriage hall, you will not see bamboo anywhere. All you will see is fancy clothes, jhumar, jhalar, everything, right? But inside all that, there is a bamboo structure. That is how cell looks like. If you just take out the cytoskeletal out from that cell, so everywhere inside the cell, there is a cytoskeletal protein, which is holding the cell, which is even holding the shape of the nucleus. Okay. Right. So pepsin and actin. Any two more? Who has not? Arpit. Arpit, what are your proteins?
Sir, trypsin.
What? Trypsin.
Trypsin.
Trypsin
Yes.
and pepsin comes together. So can you think of anything else from trypsin? Okay, let me give you a hint. There is a protein in our
Sir,
hair
lipid.
and nails, which is not inside our body, it's outside of our body. What is our hair, nails made up of? It's also present in our skin, the upper layer of the skin. Exactly, keratin. Keratin therapy के नाम पे बहुत लूटते हैं brands, you know, all these hair care and skin care brands. What is keratin? Keratin is the protein which makes your hair, skin and nails. Okay, it's again a structural protein. Anything else? Last, one more protein. Anyone? Hemoglobin is in blood, right?
Yes, sir.
But oxygen is required in every place. Like it's also required in muscles, right? Our muscles actually use a lot of oxygen when we do exercise. So what is present in muscles? Because hemoglobin does not go out of blood. It cannot go inside the cells or in the muscles. So there is a counterpart of hemoglobin present in muscles, which is called myoglobin. Okay. Just remember this. It's very important. It's present in muscles. The word myo everywhere means muscle. Okay. The word heme means heme. What does heme means? Heme means iron. Hemoglobin has an iron core. Myoglobin will study about it. So it's present in muscles and it's also important for oxygen transport in muscles. So your myoglobin are very active when you're doing exercise because your muscles are burning up a lot of oxygen, and with that oxygen they are burning up a lot of glucose and using energy. Okay, so this is just the basics. So these are some proteins that you talked about. So you see, proteins have a very diverse function. They are not just building blocks like we study in our textbooks. So we are going to uncover something more about proteins today. Okay, and from here onwards the basics is over and now we'll go to some advanced concepts. So proteins are important for transport of oxygen, regulating blood sugar level, means they act as messengers and hormones. They are also important for digestion and breakdown, which comes under metabolism. So they are metabolic. They also regulate metabolic activity. Again, a hormone, metabolic activity, structural roles. They also make structural or cytoskeletal. They play cytoskeletal roles as well, both inside the cell and outside of the body, and in muscles as well as in blood. Again, oxygen transport. Okay, so these are some common examples. So now, before moving ahead, we'll just go to, I will go to one short video. Can you see the screen now? I have shared one.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Can you see what is protein? Okay. So it's a around 7 minutes video, but we'll stop in between, and I'll explain you a lot of things here also. So let's just start with this. The audio is, it's audible to everyone?
No, sir.
It's not audible. Now is it audible?
No, sir.
The audio isn't audible.
What?
Not audible, sir.
It's not audible.
No, sir.
Why is it not audible? Just wait. Let me figure it out. Is it audible now?
Others build the structures that make up living things.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll just restart it from the beginning. So basically, it's in the beginning, it's just the general introduction that we have already talked about. So it will just consolidate your memory.
Countless roles throughout the biological group.
Okay.
Some transport nutrients throughout the body. Some help chemical reactions to happen at faster rates. Others build the structures that make up living things. Despite this wide
So
range,
someone talked about hemoglobin and also about amylase, like they play chemical roles. You also give an example of actin. Okay, collagen is one other example, which is a structural protein. Insulin we have talked about. Antibody no one said, but we'll talk about antibody. And then these are some things. Calcium pump is an example of something which we will also study. Okay.
all proteins are made out of the same 21 building blocks called amino acids.
Yes. So who use the term amino acids? Someone who said amino acids.
Yes, it was me.
Yes. So amino acids, the brilliant thing about protein biology is that there are thousands and thousands of different types of proteins. All the proteins in the animal kingdom and plant kingdom are yet not discovered. We believe that there are a lot of other organisms that have different type of proteins. But the most astonishing thing is, just like if you see the DNA of every organism is different, right? But every organism's DNA is made up of just 4 type of nucleotides, four nitrogenous bases: adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, ATGC, right? For proteins, again, there are different kind of proteins in one body, but there are just 21 amino acids, standard 21 amino acids. And almost all proteins are made up of these 21 amino acids, though latest research have figured out 2 more additional amino acids, which are just like present in higher living forms, like in humans, but they are not standard because they are not well studied till now. But remember that there are 21 amino acids, and all these amino acids make all different kind of proteins. So it depends on the chain. So different permutation and combinations of amino acids forming a long chain will form different kind of proteins. Okay.
Amino acids are made of carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen atoms. And some contain
Yes. So if you see this structure, so this black one, you can see my cursor, right, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So basically all amino acids have carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, sulfur. So if you see this carbon here, this is called the central carbon. So to the central carbon, the most important feature of any amino acid is that the carbon will have, at one end there will be a nitro group. Okay, which is called a amino group, NH3. So the white one are hydrogen. So you see there is a nitrogen attached to 1, 2, and 3 hydrogens. So the third hydrogen is inside the plane in the axis. Okay. So there will be 3 hydrogen and it's attached to 1 carbon, and the other end is attached to a carboxylic acid. You know what is carboxylic acid group? COOH, right? So this is C, this is O, and this is OH. So this becomes a carboxylic group. This blue one becomes an amino group, and that's why it's called an amino acid. Is it clear? So every amino acid will have one amino group and one acid group, carboxylic acid. That's why it's together called amino acid. And towards the third side, which is the other carbon, this whole chain, do you see this chain, this bigger chain?
Sulfur atoms. Selenium.
Sorry, I'll just go back 5 seconds. Yes, do you see this big chain which contains 1, 2 carbon, 1 sulfur, and then another carbon? So this whole chain is, it depends, like this is changeable. So you change this chain and you change the amino acid. So the only part which is different, and this question comes in entrance, which part of all the amino acids are same? So the carboxylic and the amino part always remain same. And the central carbon can bind to 4, it can form 4 bonds because the valency of carbon is 4, right? So if you understand the structure of amino acids, it's going to be very easy for you to sit in entrances and answer high order thinking skill questions based on biomolecules. And biomolecules is going to be one of your chapters also in 11th biology. So this central carbon is bound to 1 hydrogen, which is again inside the plane, and it's also bound to 1 carbon. So this carbon, this whole group is called the R group because this is changeable. Okay, some only, like some may contain sulfur, other may not contain sulfur. This yellow part is sulfur, so this is changeable. But 1, 2, and the third, which is hydrogen, these 3 parts are not changeable, they remain same. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen atoms, and some contain sulfur atoms. Selenocysteine is the only standard amino.
Yes. So there is only one amino acid which is very different from all the standard amino acid, which is called selenocysteine, a very hot topic for amino acids. Just write its name somewhere because it's the only amino acid which contains an atom which is of selenium, which is neither sulfur nor carbon nor hydrogen nor nitrogen. So mostly all amino acids contain carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and sulfur. But selenocysteine contains selenium. Okay, the only amino acid which is different.
Amino acid that contains.
So even in this structure, can you figure out what I was trying to say? So this is the central carbon. This is the COOH group, the acid group. Can you appreciate this? Everyone say yes.
Yes, sir.
On the other hand, there is an amino group, NH3 or NH. यहाँ पे the 2 hydrogens are visible. And then this is the R group. You see the R group is very different of selenocysteine. There is only 1 carbon, 1 selenium, and rest are hydrogen, right? So this R group may change. And then there is, inside the plane, there is 1 hydrogen attached to the central carbon, making the valency complete, which is 4. So 3 bonds are visible, 4th bond is in the inside of the plane of the paper. So you appreciate that these 2 groups remain constant in all amino acids.
Sir,
Yes, please ask.
sir, what amine was NH2?
NH2, yes, NH2, right. Amino group is NH2, right.
These atoms form an amino group or carboxyl group and a side chain, all attached to a central carbon atom. The side chain determines an amino acid's properties and is the only part that varies.
Yes, so they have just highlighted that the side chain is the only part which varies in all amino acids. Otherwise, everything else remains the same with respect to the central atom. So most of the time when you make a simplified structure of amino acid, you write C in the center, and then towards 3, in the 3 bonds, you write COOH, NH2, and hydrogen. and on the fourth side you just write R, and R can be any methyl group which can bind to the carbon.
From amino acid to amino acid. Hydrophobic amino acids have carbon-rich side chains.
Okay, before coming to hydrophobic amino acids, I think they skipped one thing which I'll just highlight in the structures. So do you see these structures? And okay, here. So can you see some of the amino acids have cyclic chains like phenylalanine? See here. Can you see there is a cyclic chain?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And like tryptophan, again, there are 2 cyclic chains. You know, in histidine also there is a cyclic chain, but not made up of carbon completely. Nitrogen is also a part of it. And tyrosine also has a cyclic chain, complete cyclic chain of carbon. So some tyrosine, tryptophan, and phenylalanine, okay, these 3 amino acids which have a cyclic chain of carbon, completely made up of carbon, are called aromatic amino acids. You remember in your chemistry you have read that a benzene ring give aromaticity.
Yes.
The word aromaticity comes from the word aroma. What does aroma means?
A sweet smell.
Exactly, a pleasant smell. It may or may not be sweet all the time, but it has a pleasant, distinctive smell. So these amino acids, phenylalanine, tryptophan, and tyrosine, have a distinctive smell. If you make a purified solution of only these amino acids, it will have a pleasant smell, and they are aromatic amino acids. Okay, so these 3 are special aromatic amino acids. A easy way to remember this is WIF, WYF. Okay, so these letters which you see, so for every amino acid there is a name, which is like, let's say for alanine, the complete name is alanine. Then there's a 3 alphabet name. This is also standard for alanine, it's ALA. And then there is a single alphabet attributed, because when you make a chain, suppose you are representing a chain of amino acids of 20 amino acids, so you are not going to write the name of 20 amino acids. It will take a lot of space. Suppose you are working in bioinformatics, so there is a single alphabet abbreviated for all the amino acids. For alanine it's A, but there can be more amino acids that starts from A, like arginine, asparagine, okay, and aspartic acid. So everyone cannot have A. So for alanine it's A, for arginine it's R, for aspartic acid it's D. Okay, so you can remember some of them. It's very good if you can remember all of them, because it's very helpful. Some of the most important amino acids that are going to be important from your entrance point of view is WIF, WYF, tryptophan, tyrosine, and phenylalanine, because they are aromatic amino acids, the only 3 aromatic amino acids. And that the most simplest amino acid, which is glycine. See glycine here at the top corner. Do you see there's a central carbon attached to one amino group and one carboxylic acid group and 2 hydrogens simply. So 1 hydrogen is there in everyone, and the group, there is no group, right? There is a simple hydrogen. So this is the simplest form of amino acid, glycine. 2 hydrogens, 1 carboxylic acid, 1 amino group. So glycine is important, tyrosine, tryptophan, phenylalanine is important, and methionine. This is another important amino acid, because methionine is called the starting of every protein. You know how protein is made? Protein is made from? It's made from amino acid, but what codes the message for protein? In a cell, DNA makes RNA, and RNA makes protein, right? So ribosomes bind to the RNA, reads the RNA, and starts making protein. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. And you know, for every protein, does not matter what that protein is. If it is a functional protein, the first amino acid for every functional protein in the humans or any living organism is methionine. So methionine is coded by RNA by AUG. Okay, A for adenine, U for uracil, G for guanine. Okay, AUG codes for methionine, and for every structure, for every functional protein, methionine is the first amino acid. It has to be the first amino acid. So methionine, the structure of methionine is important, and methionine contains a sulfur. Can you see that? This is the central carbon attached to a carboxylic group, amino group, and this is the R chain in which there is a sulfur. Okay, so you have to remember, so you can just write in your notes that aromatic amino acids are phenylalanine, tryptophan, and tyrosine. The most simplest one is glycine with 2 hydrogen. R is hydrogen, and methionine is the first amino acid of every protein which contains a sulfur. Another protein that contains another amino acid that contains a sulfur is cysteine. Cysteine has sulfur. Okay. And the most different kind of amino acid is selenocysteine, because it is like cysteine, but so if you see the structure of cysteine and selenocysteine, you will understand why selenocysteine is called selenocysteine, because it has a central carbon to which another carbon is bound, and then there is a, if there was a sulfur here, it will become cysteine, and if in the place of sulfur selenium comes, it becomes selenocysteine. Is it clear? Right? Okay.
From amino acid to amino acid. Hydrophobic amino acids have carbon-rich side chains.
Okay, what does the word hydrophobic means? Again, so we'll go through these and these terminologies over and over again. Hydrophobic means, anyone?
Disliking.
Yeah, disliking water.
Yes, so phobia means fear and hydro means water. So they have a fear for water. They do not like to interact with water. So if they are not interacting with water, they will not be, they cannot dissolve in water, right? So these amino
Yes.
acids,
which don't interact well with water.
yes.
Hydrophilic or polar amino acids interact well with water.
So hydrophilic interact with water, and for interaction, so this is a water molecule, H2O. So there is 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen in the center, and you see it's not straight, it's at an angle. So this angle is very important to understand interactions. And the bond between the two, water and anything, it's not a real bond. It's called hydrogen bond. It's the attraction between hydrogen and hydrogen electron cloud. So it's called hydrogen bond.
Charged amino acids interact with oppositely charged amino acids or with other molecules.
Yes. So some amino acids are charged. Charged in the sense that they will have a negative or a positive cloud at one end. Polar and non-polar, you can also say that. Now let's come to the protein structure. So this is important. This is also important from your entrance point of view. So just pay attention to this.
Primary structure.
So proteins have basically 4 levels of structures. If it is a long single chain of amino acids, okay, it's called the primary structure. If that long chain again makes a 3D kind of a structure, it's called a secondary structure, interacting with itself. Then there is a tertiary structure. In tertiary structure, it again like forms 3-dimensional structures, making different, so multiple complexes can come together to form a tertiary structure. And then there is a quaternary structure, which is not present in all the proteins, but it's also important. So let's just go through these structures.
The primary structure of a protein is the linear sequence of amino acids.
Okay. So to appreciate what this video just did is, let me just go 5 seconds back, and we will just increase the speed. Playback speed, I'll make it fast. Now, see here, DNA code for proteins, you know that? So is jagah pe, in this box, there will be a triplet. A triplet means three nucleotides from a DNA or an RNA will be read together. and when they are read together, they code for one amino acid. So let's just begin. You will always appreciate that the first, to start any protein, the first code has to be ATG. I told you about. So T is thymine, which is present in DNA. And when RNA is made from DNA, this T is not present, it becomes U. Because thymine is present in DNA, and in place of thymine, there is uracil in RNA. So you can just write it because it's also important information. But ATG always has to come first. And ATG codes for, what was the first amino acid?
Methionine.
Methionine. So for every protein, the first amino acid is going to be methionine all the time.
Primary structure for
So this is methionine, and it comes at the very first stage. Okay, sulfur containing methionine. Then the second can be anything, anything. So the code is CAA, and CAA codes for, what is GLN? Okay, you will not remember it so fast, but it's fine. I'll just make the speed normal.
your sequence of amino acids has
So
included
it
on
just
DNA.
keeps on adding more and more and more amino acids.
The amino acids in a protein are joined by peptide bonds.
Okay, and between, whenever two amino acids comes together and form a bond, it's called a peptide bond. Okay, so this is one bonding, this is one bonding, this is one bonding, and all these bonds are called peptide bonds.
Which link the amino group of one amino acid to the carboxyl group of another. A water molecule is released.
Yes, and the most important thing about peptide bonds is always an amino acid will bind to a carboxylic acid and a water molecule is released.
Peptide bonds formed.
So this is like a
This linked
chain.
series of carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen atoms is the protein backbone. Protein chains often fold into two types of secondary structures.
So the primary structure was, so primary structure is not real functional structure, it is just a hypothetical structure, because कभी भी ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि एक सेल के अंदर एक सिंगल चेन में बर्फ पानी खिलते हुए चेन बना के अमीनो एसिड्स बैठे रहे. They always form a secondary and tertiary structure because this is the functional form of the protein. Protein is not functional in its primary form. That's why it does not exists in its primary form. So primary form is for the sake of understanding that how they join together and make a long chain. Now secondary structure is of two types. On the left hand side, you see a helix, right? A curved helical structure. So that single chain which you saw in a primary structure can fold like this and can form a secondary. This is called helical structure, protein helix. Or it can form like, it can stack together and it can form like sheets. So this is like a flat sheet. It's just represented like this. It is not in the arrow form. This arrow just denotes the direction, which means the sheet is starting from here and going in this direction. So this sheet kind of structure is called beta pleated sheets. So secondary structure can only be of two types, helical or beta pleated. Again, very interesting.
And beta sheets. An alpha helix is a right-handed coil stabilized by hydrogen bonds between the amine and carboxyl groups of nearby amino acids.
Is it clear? For alpha helix to exist, there has to be hydrogen bonding here. Have you seen a spring?
Yes, sir.
If you try to extend the spring, and release it, it comes back. There is a recoil in the spring, and that recoil keeps it in that spiral form. If there is no recoil, then you will be very easily able to make every spring into a flat line. So if there is no recoil in the spring, or if the spring is not made up of metal, suppose it's made up of plastic, which you can easily pull by applying forces, you take a plastic spring and then you just extend it and it will become a straight single line, right? Because there is no recoil. So in beta pleated sheets, they always maintain this recoil because of hydrogen bonding happening between these 2 points. So that is what keeps it in a
Beta
spherical shape.
sheets are formed when hydrogen bonds stabilize two or more adjacent strands of
Yes.
amino acids.
And beta sheets are mostly formed by folding. So if the structure folds upon itself without spiraling, So one thing is spiraling, another thing is folding. So if the whole structure folds upon itself, it will form beta pleated sheets. If the structure instead of folding makes spirals, and all these positions of these hydrogen bonds govern these two kind of structures.
The tertiary structure of a protein is the three-dimensional shape of the protein chain.
Yes. Tertiary structure is the actual structure of protein in which the protein exists in the cell. Okay, the functional form of protein. So you see in the tertiary structure, both beta sheets and alpha helix both are present, right? So the protein starts somewhere here. This is the starting point, and then it goes on to form a beta sheet because the single line is folding upon itself. And then again there is a beta sheet structure. Then after some time there is an alpha helix structure, and then again there is a beta sheet, and then for a long time there's nothing, then there's a beta sheet, again a beta sheet, and the protein sequence ends, right? So it's a very long structure of amino acids which is forming both alpha helix and beta sheets. This is called tertiary
The
structure.
shape is determined by the characteristics of the amino acids making up the chain.
Yes, so this is a very good representation of how protein folds. So in the folding of protein to form these kind of complex structures, the role of environment is also very important. Till now, it is a very hot topic of research where scientists are trying to understand how proteins form so systematically and form and follow the shape which they have been following for millions of years in evolution. Hemoglobin, regardless of the fact whether it is present in one human or the other, or in chimpanzees or in any other organism, it forms in exactly the same shape. No one knows how and why. Okay, like we know how, and we also know to some extent why, but the broader question that what actually regulates protein folding is still not completely solved.
Many proteins form globular shapes with hydrophobic side chains sheltered on the inside, away from surrounding water molecules.
Yes, so this is
Membrane-bound proteins have hydrophobic amino
now
acids.
when you were reading about cell membrane, so cell membrane में see these two layers are of lipids, right? It's a lipid bilayer. कभी कभी ये भी ड्रॉ किया होगा ना बीच में कि बीच में एक membranous protein भी होता है, right? Proteins are embedded in the membrane at different places, right? Have you drawn the structure of cell membrane, or have you drawn any animal or plant cell in class 10
Yes, sir.
diagram mein? So you must have drawn embedded proteins, right? These membranous proteins which are embedded in a lipid bilayer act as pumps for a lot of things. Like there is a glucose channel through which glucose enters. Same calcium pump, what it does, it regulates the inflow and outflow of calcium in and out of the cell. Okay, and all these channels or pumps are also made up of proteins.
So that hydrophobic side chains can interact with the lipids in the membrane. Charged amino acids allow proteins to interact with molecules that have complementary charges.
Yes, proteins also interact with DNA.
The functions of many proteins rely upon their three-dimensional shapes. For example, hemoglobin forms a pocket to hold heme, a small molecule with an iron atom in the center that binds to oxygen.
This is a hemoglobin.
Quaternary structure. Two or more polypeptide chains can come together to form one functional molecule with several.
So this was important. The first molecule, when I asked that name a protein, so Mariam said hemoglobin, because hemoglobin is the first important protein about which we learn, right? But we don't learn it enough to understand what hemoglobin does. So in hemoglobin, the functional structure of hemoglobin is not primary, it cannot be primary or secondary. It's also not tertiary, it's quaternary. In a quaternary structure, so you see this one structure in the center, this is a tertiary structure, because iske bhi center mein there is one thing which is called the heme, which they showed. Heme has one iron, Fe, in the center, and that whole heme structure is in the center of hemoglobin, and at the four different sides there are globin molecules. So these are 1, 2, 3, and 4 globulin molecules, which makes one hemoglobin. But for hemoglobin to be functional, more than one hemoglobin structures
Functional molecule with
come together. So exactly four hemoglobin structures come together and form a quaternary hemoglobin structure, which is functional.
before subunits of hemoglobin cooperate so the complex can more easily pick up oxygen in the lungs and release it.
And that blue thing which came on floating and got in, this blue thing is oxygen molecule, O2, two oxygen atoms. So unless and until a hemoglobin is in its quaternary structure, it cannot bind to oxygen. Is it clear?
Different visual representations of proteins give us visual clues about protein structure and function. This space-filling diagram shows all of the atoms that make up this protein. This representation, called a ribbon or
So
cartoon
the representation part is not important.
diagram, of the protein
So this was the, after this, the video goes into some other details which are not important for you, but I'll show you one thing, which is the functions. Okay, let's go to what functions they play. Okay.
The three-dimensional shapes of proteins determine their function.
So in our discussion also, we actually discussed about a lot of function. We discussed about structure. Actin, someone said actin, right? It was a structural protein. We also talked about enzymes, pepsin. We also talked about transport, hemoglobin. We also talked about communication, insulin. Storage and defense we didn't touch upon. So just let's see.
The
Antibodies.
flexible arms of antibodies protect us from disease by recognizing and binding to pathogens and targeting them for destruction by the immune system.
So antibodies are also proteins which bind to pathogens, and when they bind to pathogens, they take these pathogens. It's like police officers. They hold the criminals or the pathogens and take it to the immune cells, the white blood cells. Okay, and white blood cells recognize because antibodies are bound to it. So any cell, any foreign particle, or any internal particle on which antibodies are bound, then our immune system can get to know that this is something we have to destroy. Okay, and this is how antibodies help in destroying viruses. So again, because we are discussing this, what is the whole point of vaccination? Have anyone taken a COVID shot?
Yes, sir.
Got vaccinated? Congratulations. So do you know what was there in your vaccines?
I have no idea.
Which vaccine did you take?
Pfizer.
Okay, Pfizer. So it's a RNA based. So in your vaccines, either you can give antibodies directly into the body, or you can give something to the body through which body can make its own antibodies. So we give RNA for a spike protein of coronavirus, not the whole virus, not the dead virus, just a RNA or a small part of the protein of the coat protein, spike protein. And our immune cells look at that spike protein and make a lot of antibodies which can go and bind to those proteins. So antibody means against, anti means against, and body means that particle. So it's against that particle, which means whatever the particle is, it will bind to that particle. And this is how antibodies recognizes foreign particles. So you have a lot of antibodies against the spike protein of coronavirus in your body now after vaccination. So when real coronavirus will come into your body, these antibodies are ready and flowing in your blood. They will just see that thing and they know that, okay, I have to go and bind there because that seems familiar. It will go and bind there and it will not allow the virus to do anything. And our immune cells will recognize the virus instantly because antibodies bind to it and they will destroy the virus. So this is how immunity works. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Communication, insulin, right? Perfect. So good example they also take. So this darwaza type, Buland darwaza type thing is an insulin receptor. This is the plasma membrane shown here. My cursor is visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, this is the plasma membrane and this is the extracellular space. A lot of things are floating around and I think some of it is glucose. This is insulin, I think this is glucose, something. So insulin binds to this insulin receptor. And when it binds to this receptor, there are some changes that takes place in this receptor, which tells the cell that now you can take in glucose. Okay, they're communicating with the cell like a chitti.
Insulin is a small stable protein that can easily maintain its shape while traveling through the blood to regulate blood glucose level.
See, this is yes. So the moment insulin binds to the receptor, you see these white molecules are glucose. जैसे ही इसने bind किया, from the plasma membrane, a glucose transporter is popped out, and now it know that I have to take in glucose. So this glucose transporter will allow all the glucose which is in the surrounding vicinity to come inside the cell. See, this glucose is just gone inside the cells. So this is how it communicates. For enzymes, it's amylase.
Alpha amylase is an enzyme that begins digestion of starches in our saliva.
Yes, it's just breaking it into smaller parts. For transport, it's
The
calcium
calcium
pump.
pump is aided by magnesium and powered by ATP to move calcium ions back to the sarcoplasm.
So the motion you are seeing
after each muscle
is
contraction.
actually a representative, but it's true. You know, a lot of protein pumps or structures in our cell membrane actually rotate like real motors. So there is one more structure which is very fascinating that I'm going to take in the next series, which is called ATP ATP synthase. How ATP is synthesized, and it actually rotates like a motor, and it looks like a motor because these are all structural proteins. So this protein, which allows calcium to go in, is activated by magnesium. Magnesium binds, activates the pump, and for energy, one ATP comes. This red thing is ATP. It comes, binds, give energy to the pump. So this is like a battery, and magnesium is like the on switch. So the battery is inside, on switch is inside. Now it will start functioning. It will start transporting calcium inside the cell. And it actually rotates in this manner. It moves in this manner. See, all these green things are calcium. Okay.
Ferritin is a spherical protein with channels that allow iron atoms to enter and exit depending on an organism's needs.
So for storage, they have taken an example of ferritin. So ferritin stores iron in our body, iron atoms. So it just stores a lot of atoms inside it, just like a balloon. Okay. There is a lot of other proteins for different kind of chemicals, which can store a lot of different kind of chemicals, and they are protein structures.
On the inside, ferritin forms a hollow space with iron atoms attached to the inner wall. Ferritin stores iron in a non-toxic form. Collagen forms a strong triple helix that is used throughout the body for structural support.
Yes. Can you tell me where is collagen present?
molecules can form elongated fibrils, which aggregate.
Collagen सुना हुआ है?
Yes, sir.
Yes. कहाँ होता है collagen?
Skin.
The cell wall of plants.
Yes.
Cellulose होता है उसमें. उसमें collagen नहीं होता है, उसमें cellulose होता है. Where is collagen present? You are very close, but just go a little deeper. What did you say? You say skin, right?
Yes, sir.
Skin, like skin is the epidermis, which is the outer part of the skin, is actually a multiple layer of dead tissues. So our outermost skin is dead. Does it make sense that the outermost skin is dead? From the
Yes.
point of evolution, does it make sense to you? Yash, Mariam,
Yes, sir.
how does it make sense?
It will provide protection.
How? Just think like a biologist. All the worst you can do is you can give a wrong answer in my class. We are not covering any syllabus. I'm just
Sir,
your
it
horizon.
requires less maintenance.
So one thing is it requires less maintenance, but
It will be hard. Like it's
maintain. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, Mariam. You were speaking. Who was
it will become like thick if it's dead.
if it's dead, what will happen?
It becomes thick and durable.
It becomes thick and durable. Okay, I'll buy that point. Okay, it's fine. But just think that what if it is not dead? What if it is a living? Like all our layers are living. Living layers or living cells gets damaged, right? And can also get infected easily. Whenever we walk around, millions of virus and bacterial particles land on our skin, right?
Yes, sir.
There is bacteria and viruses in the air, and it's landing everywhere on your skin, every time, every day. So if all that layer of outer skin was alive, it was very easy for bacteria to do an infection, right?
Yes.
अभी होते
Sir,
हैं.
but
Yes, yes.
sir, would infection still happen?
Exactly. That is what I'm going to say. That with all dead layers on the top, there is still skin infection that can happen because some bacteria can penetrate inside those layers and reach the living cells. But आपको हर दिन, हर घंटे, हर मिनट स्किन इन्फेक्शन होता अगर सारे layers living होते. So the protection is from the point of view that it does not expose living cells to the immediate environment where bacteria can just sit on the cell and infect the cell. It has to reach some layers deep. And normally, if you keep your body clean, like if you are taking bath regularly, or if you're cleaning your hands and feet and your mouth, you're washing your face, then you always, decrease the chances of infection. And most of the time, skin infections happens through open pores. There are sweat glands on our skin. Those are the open pores through which a bacteria or a virus can directly reach our living cells. Sometimes it may have happened that you get a scratch on your skin, and the skin, there's a white line on your skin, right?
Yes.
No blood comes out, nothing happens. It's a very feeble scratch, and there is just a white line. This tells that the scratch did not reach your live layers. It was just like till your dead layers. So any dead thing, and this scratch, you try to scratch any dead surface like your laptop or anything, you will see a white kind of a line, right? Because it's just a dead layer that you have scratched. So does it make sense how dead layers actually help us?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So collagen is actually present in the lower layers or the innermost layers of our skin and tissues, where the tissue starts.
This type of collagen is abundant in skin and tendons.
Tendons are, so there are two kind of muscles which interact with bones. One is ligament and one is tendon. Okay, tendon is white in color and ligament is yellow in color. Ligaments attach muscles with bones. Okay, tendons attach bone with bones. Okay.
Yes.
More about the functions and 3D structures of the protein.
So this is all that they were trying to show. We'll come back to our whiteboard mode now. Here. Okay. So now that you know of proteins and basically their structures, what kind of structures they have, and what are their different functions, I'll just tell you one more important thing, with which we will end this session on proteins. But we'll continue. There's a lot of to study in proteins. So एक चीज जो हमने आज पढ़ी is that proteins fold, right? Proteins are not a single chain of amino acids like they are defined in the books, that a long chain of amino acids is called a protein. A long chain has to go under certain kind of types of folding to attain a structure that is functional. Like for hemoglobin, certain tertiary structures come together, 4 specifically come together to form a quaternary structure. For calcium channel or calcium pump, the pump has to be in a proper shape so that it can bind to ATP, magnesium, and then it can allow calcium to go through it. Am I right? So structure is very important, and for that structure, folding is very important, right? Now my question is, there must be something inside the cell which is folding these proteins, right? Do you know what are these things which fold proteins? Again, a question asked in boards.
It's the intermolecular forces.
What?
Hydrogen bonds.
No, hydrogen bonds helps in the like taking it a proper fold, but it cannot just happen anywhere, right? There must be something. जैसे कि for example, आप लोगों के घर पे कभी गुजिया बनी है? गुजिया,
Yes, sir.
स्वीट डिश, मिठाई टाइप के, यू नो? तो गुजिया का एक प्रॉपर शेप होता है. कैसे बनता है वो शेप? हाथ से बना सकते हैं क्या?
Sir.
बना सकते हैं क्या हाथ से? मोस्टली कैसे बनता है घरों में? See,
The machine.
that is just machine. What machine?
I mean, it's a mold. Basically.
Yes, there comes a mold or a cast, right? So there is something like this kind of a mold where this has some depth and there is this and some depth. यहाँ पे हम कुछ भरते हैं and then we close it, you know, and a shape of gujia comes out, right? Something like this. Sorry for my illustrations, but there is a mold in which we keep it and then we press it and then the shape of gujia is there. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. For proteins also, like a very long chain of amino acids, अपने आप उसको अपने आप ही hydrogen bonds बनने लगेंगे. It's not logical. So for it to form hydrogen bonds, suppose this is a long amino acid. यहाँ पे बहुत सारे amino acids हैं, ठीक है? And for it to be structural, एक 3D structure में, this amino acid at the very end has to interact with this amino acid, the 5th amino acid. This is 5th and this is at the end. So this has to come here and form a hydrogen bond with this so that ये पूरा का पूरा fold हो जाए अपने ऊपर and make a beta sheet. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
But सेल के अंदर तो इनके बीच में बहुत डिस्टेंस है ना. ये तो अमीनो एसिड राइबोसोम्स ने बना के निकाल दिए, एक लॉन्ग चेन बना दी अमीनो एसिड्स की और सेल में छोड़ दी. अभी ये अमीनो एसिड यहाँ पे कैसे आएगा इंटरेक्ट करने के लिए? जैसे सेम like for a gujia, this part of the atta has to come in contact with this part of the atta to seal the gujia. So there is a mold or a cast. In the same way, inside the cell, there are structures called chaperones. Remember this name? It's going to stick with you for very long now in medical profession. Chaperones are the structures which are the cast or the molds for protein, long chain of proteins. So this long chain comes into the chaperone, and chaperone just exactly in the same manner how you shape a gujia, it just physically brings all the, it just squishes all the amino acids together and gives a shape to it. Okay. Now the interesting part is that chaperones themselves are proteins. Here is where evolution comes into the picture and the motive of advanced classes. Now your syllabus ends here. In your syllabus, you are going to be asked what helps in protein folding. There will be 4 options. One option will be chaperones. You tick the chaperone, you get 1 mark in your entrance, done, dusted. But I'm saying that chaperones themselves are proteins. So a protein helps to fold another protein. Now the question is, they also have a 3-dimensional tertiary or quaternary structures. Who folded chaperones? Right?
Yes, sir.
Any ideas? Any brainstorming? If chaperone folds protein, who folded chaperones in the first place? Any idea? गलत जवाब दो, कोई बात नहीं.
Their surroundings में.
Then why can't surroundings fold all the proteins? If
Because
fold chaperone,
chaperones might have a simpler shape.
what?
So chaperones might have a simpler shape.
chaperones have more complex shape than proteins or equally complex shapes as proteins, because गुजिया का जो मोल्ड होगा वो भी तो गुजिया जैसा ही होगा ना, तभी तो
Yes.
जाने के बाद गुजिया का शेप भी वैसा आएगा, right? Every mold has to be like or even more complex than what it is molding. So chaperones are actually very complex structure. इसमें और the most and more important and interesting part is chaperones के अंदर भी सिर्फ बीटा प्लीटेड शीट्स और हेलिक्स ही होते हैं, because it's again a protein. So protein folds another protein. So protein folding, that's why, is a very hot topic in research. And if you want to go into research and want to make your career in protein or protein folding field and want to study proteins that causes a lot of diseases, you will be working on chaperones a lot. But first question is, who folded chaperones? Now this is your assignment question for the next class, because in the next class we are going to continue this evolutionary part. So just write out what are chaperones. Just try to read about it. Just a light reading. You don't have to burden yourself with chaperones. Just try to understand what are they, and just try to figure out what folds a chaperone in the first place. Because in evolution सबसे पहले मान लेते हैं कि एक अमीनो एसिड बना होगा, right? डीएनए आया, डीएनए से आरएनए आया, आरएनए से एक राइबोसोम ने एक लंबा सा अमीनो एसिड बना दिया. तो टू बिगिन विद, जब पहला अमीनो एसिड बना होगा तब तो chaperones रहे नहीं होंगे ना, chaperones भी तो कहीं से आए ही होंगे in the form of amino acids. So how did they get folded and started working like chaperones? Another question is chaperones completely protein? Is it just protein or something else? That also you have to read. You will get a hint in its structure, okay? Will you do it? Is it interesting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so find about chaperones a little bit. Now, this was my first question. My second question is, if chaperone helps in folding proteins, if proteins are folded in a cell, in biology, the chances of errors are equally there. If proteins can be folded, they can also be misfolded, right?
Yes, sir.
हम लोग अपनी शर्ट्स को फोल्ड करते हैं, बहुत बार मिसफोल्ड भी कर देते हैं. तो अगर anything if it can get folded, it can get misfolded as well. If something can get cooked, it can get overcooked or undercooked as well, right? तो गलतियां biological system में हो सकती हैं. Misfolding is a very common mistake, and misfolding of protein causes a lot of diseases, And one thing which I'm going to tell you, the last for today, is about, have you ever heard this term, prions? 10th में एक छोटे से पैराग्राफ में एक छोटी सी लाइन में इसका एक जिक्र है. prions.
No, sir.
सुना है virions?
No, sir.
virus?
Virus, yes.
वायरस सुना है, virions भी नहीं सुना और prions भी नहीं सुना. Okay. Prions are small chains of amino acids which are not proteins or which are misfolded proteins, and they cause infectious diseases. Okay. And you will be very amazed to know that a lot of diseases that are incurable today, and we are struggling to find its cure, like Alzheimer's. You know Alzheimer's disease? It's a neurological disorder. Another is Parkinson's, another neurological disorder. Both these diseases takes place because of prions. Okay, and I'll just explain prions to you, which I will take forward in the next session as well with some more interactive things, and then we'll go to the evolutionary part. But let me just share with you another small video on prions. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
So I'm not going to, the video has nothing, it's just explaining you certain things, but this part is important. Can you see this diagram?
Yes, sir.
This PRP is called prion protein. Okay. So normally when it is not a prion, this is the protein which is responsible for making prions. So when it is normal, no one knows what is the function of this protein. Like it's not well studied the function. C means the cellular form, the normal form. The prion protein C means the normal form of prion protein. When it is not a prion, it's a protein. In normal form, it has alpha helices. Can you see that there is one helix here and one helix here and one helix here? There are 3 helix, 2 long, 1 short. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
When it misfolded, when it undergoes misfolding, these alpha helix, the third alpha helix disappear.
Prion. And you'll notice, as I mentioned, it has a lot.
Shut up. So when it misfolds, you see there is this alpha helix and there is this other alpha helix, which is actually very close together. But this longer one, this second alpha helix is not here, right? The second alpha helix get converted into beta sheets. You see it? So you can follow the color coding. So the blue part, this blue helix is here, the blue helix. This rest of the blue part also becomes a helix. But this red and the yellow part, it's all beta pleated, right? And also the green. Green was already a beta sheet. Here also green is a beta sheet, but the yellow and the red part, which actually were a alpha helix, are now beta strands. Do you appreciate this?
Yes.
This is a misfolded structure. And because of this structure, what happens is, if a protein has lots of beta pleated sheets, it will do exactly the same thing which it is named for. What do sheets do? Sheets aggregate. You can keep one sheet above the other, right?
Yes, sir.
It's like a copy. So when this protein gets misfolded, it from PRPC, which is natural cellular protein, it becomes PRPSC. And this SC means it comes from a disease which happens in lambs, sheep, and goats. It's called scrapie. I decided not to show you pictures because the pictures might be very disgusting. But what happens is, sheep's, their eyes gout out and they start looking ugly and bad and they start behaving like mads. This prion is also causes a disease in cows called the mad cow disease, where it affects the brain, and it affects the brain so much that the cow starts behaving like a mad cow. That's why it's called the mad cow disease. Okay, so you can, if you want, you can look up for scrapie. It's a disease. But PRPSC means the prion protein which causes scrapie. This is one example I'm discussing with you, and it remains the same. The mechanism remains the same. A normal protein which has both beta sheets and alpha helix, after misfolding, makes a lot of beta sheets and less of helix. And because of this, it starts aggregating one above the other. And when it starts aggregating, the whole structure changes and the protein forms a lot of aggregates. And because it's forming aggregates, it can cause a lot of protein clustering, and we'll come to this. But before, let's come here. Abhi, if this has evolved in biology, there should be a counter mechanism. So normally what happens, whenever a protein misfolds, there are mechanisms in our cell which recognize it. Okay, oh, this is a misfolded protein. So they take it back to chaperones for refolding. Okay. So this PRPC protein is present in every human being. So it's present in you, but all of you do not have Alzheimer's disease, right? Because, and it must be misfolding, because if this protein is present, it must be folding and it also must be misfolding. But most of the times this misfolded protein goes back and gets properly refolded. But if it does not get refolded and the misfolded proteins keeps on increasing and starts forming aggregate, those aggregates reaches the brain, and inside the neuron, it causes dendritic death. Like the dendrites of the neuron starts dying, and the neurons also starts dying. And when the neurons will start dying, the brain will start deteriorating. And here you can see there is a cross sectional between a normal. So this is a section of the brain taken from the front. Okay, like So suppose this is the skull here, and if you just slice the skull from the front, like the blade is coming from the top and they're slicing the skull, the brain will look like this. See, the normal brain is very big, bigger as compared to the Alzheimer's brain, right? Because in a normal brain, all the neurons are intact and alive and all the connections are active. In Alzheimer's brain, over time, because of neuronal death, a lot of neurons keeps on dying, and brain, because of lack of neurons, starts shrinking with less connections, less memory, less intelligence, less control over their motor movements, less auditory capacity, visual capacity. Everything is affected in Alzheimer's, and finally it leads to death. So these kind of diseases are caused by just a single glitch in the mechanism of protein folding. Now this is very interesting to understand, and a lot of research is going on so that we can understand how protein forms and folds and misfolds. Is it interesting for you?
Yes.
Now do one thing. Your second take home
Individual. And that's the
your second take home thing is make a list of diseases that are caused by prions. Okay. So what all diseases are caused by prions? So I'll just go back to whiteboard. So you have to find out about chaperones, and then you have to find out about prions and what other diseases apart from Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, very common one. What are other diseases which are caused by prions? Okay. And it will also be good if you look at virions and viruses. What is the difference between virions, viruses, and prions? Prions are just simple, and they are around. Okay, not here. So I ask you, what is a peptide? So a peptide is 18 to 20 amino acid long chain. If something is 18 to 20 amino acid long, it does not qualify to become a protein. Anything bigger than this is called a protein. Okay, may form a protein, but anything which is this small is not called a protein, it's called a peptide. Okay, that's why a protein chain is called a polypeptide. More than one peptide should be there to form a protein. So one thing you have to learn, figure out about prions and about chaperones. And the third thing is you have to find out which is the smallest. And while you will find this, you will also prepare 2 entrance questions. Which is the smallest protein in living system, not animal kingdom, in living system? And which is the largest protein in living system? Let me tell you, the largest protein is so large that you can see it with the naked eye. 1 unit of it. So try finding this, which is the smallest protein, and smallest in the sense in terms of its weight and in terms of its amino acid. Okay, let's just find it in terms of amino acids. How many amino acids are present in the smallest protein and how many amino acids are present in the largest protein? Okay, will you do that?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And in the next class, in the next session, we will take on from here and we will start understanding the evolution of these biomolecules. And by these, I mean carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins, all the 3, because these are the major biomolecules. And I will also ask you to go back and watch the previous videos about lipids and glucose. Okay? थोड़ा सा काम है, and from now onwards the classes will happen on Friday. We have shifted it on Fridays because Wednesday some of you have other classes and the schedule was not fitting in well. So it will happen next Friday. So you have exactly 1 week to do it. So every day if you just find half an hour, just think about these questions because they are going to help you a lot. Okay, did you learn something from today's class? Was it good for you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll see you on next Friday. Come prepared with these questions, and then we'll discuss more about these biomolecules and the evolutionary relevance of it, how they evolved. It's very interesting. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Then if
Thank you.
no one has any questions, then I'll just call off the session. Good night. Take care.